And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Whole Agenda radio show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, broadcasting to you live from the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network, and I thank you and I bless you for being here. We have a wonderful guest this evening, by the way. First time on this broadcast. I'm sure you are all familiar with him. Now, his name is Pastor Lindsey Williams. Now, Lindsey Williams, who has been an ordained Baptist minister for 20 years, went to Alaska in 1971 as a missionary. The Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline began its construction phase in 1974, and because of Mr. Williams' love for his country and concern for the spiritual welfare of the pipeliners, he volunteered to serve as chaplain on the pipeline, with the subsequent full support of the Alaska Pipeline Company. Because of the executive status accorded to him as chaplain, he was given access to the world's elite, whom few ever see. To date, Lindsey still remains in contact with a few of these elites, often revealing insider information in regards to the plans being implemented to bring the world into a global new world order with the elite of the world in control. Now, Pastor Williams has also just recently produced a new DVD called The Next 4 Years. Pastor Williams, welcome to the broadcast. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here with us.
Robert, what a privilege it is to be with you tonight, especially since it's the first time I've had the opportunity to be on your show. I feel honored.
The honor is all mine, Pastor. And just really quick, for those of for the people who don't know who you are, you have basically brought forth information so invaluable to most people that if they choose to listen and understand what you have brought to the table, they can spare their dinner table, as you have so often said. And I want to bless you and thank you for that, sir.
Well, Robert, I appreciate that. You know, it's all about the providence of God. If it had not been for him, I could have never been where I was. Yeah, I'm sure I have many new friends out there on your show, seeing that this is the first opportunity I've had to be with you. So since I will be making some very drastic predictions tonight, that unless you know the background and where they come from, I agree, your audience would have a very difficult time understanding it. And I would urge everyone in your listening audience tonight to please get a pencil and paper, because I can hopefully help spare you a lot of heartache and save your dinner table many times over the next 4 years. So somewhat as a background, I had been the pastor of a church for 12 years, went to Alaska as a missionary, and was actually invited by the elite of the world to be their chaplain. As a result, I lived with the people that you oftentimes only hear about but never get to rub shoulders with. And there's no way, except by the providence of God, that this possibly could have happened, that a little insignificant missionary could have been invited to be the chaplain to the elite of the world. For 3 years' time, I lived with these people, sat across the dinner table from them, sat with them in their meetings. And if someone had asked me prior to my experience, chaplain, do you believe there's a group of people on the face of the earth who control the world? I'll admit to you, I would have laughed at them. That was the furthest thing in the world from my mind. If someone had asked me 3 years later, after my experience of living with these people and having the opportunity to rub shoulders with them one-on-one, they were not in my church. I was on their oil field. And if someone had said to me, after those 3 years experience, chaplain, do you believe there's a group of people who tell the president what to do, dictate to Congress what bills to pass, tell OPEC and the Arabs on any given day what they're going to give them for a barrel of oil, and control the currencies of the world, I would have said, not only do I believe it, I sat and listened to them talk about it. Now, that was 37 years ago. And as a result of my 3 years of living with these people, I made some very close friends, believe it or not. Of course, we were as far apart as East is from West, but I was able to keep in touch with these people over these years. And from time to time, I would be on the phone or in the presence of one of them, and they would with me, and they would tell me things that were going to happen 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line. And as a result, I would go out and tell the world what I'd heard. And it's so amazing as I look back over these 37 years, not one single prediction that they ever have told me has ever failed to happen, because behind closed doors, the New World Order group has planned everything that's going on. Nothing ever happens by chance. It all happens by a prearranged plan. Now, these people today that I rubbed shoulders with 37 years ago, they're now in their 70s and 80s. They're retired, but yet they still know what's happening, because once you ever become a part of this elite group, you never get away from it. You know too much. And because of that, today I still have contact with some of them. One of them passed away about a year and a half ago, and many of you wondered all those years who he was. Of course, he was a senior executive with Atlantic Richfield, Mr. Fromm, and he was an amazing, amazing man. And now, of course, when I want to know something, I merely pick up the telephone and ask. And it so happens, Robert, that just after the election in November, I had friends that were beside themselves. I had business people that would come to me. You know, you meet so many people when you're on as many radio shows as I am. And I have a lot of people in the business world that are friends of mine, and they came to me and they said, Chaplain, what are we going to do? We don't know where to go. We don't know whether to close our business or whether to expand our business. We're utterly frustrated because there's so much uncertainty out there. And they said, can you give us any answers? Well, finally, I decided I would go to the source, and I did. I contacted my elite friend, and I said, what can be expected over the next 4 years of this administration? Now, the information I was given as a result of numerous emails over the next 3 to 4 days, I found out nearly everything that the elite have planned for this administration of the next 4 years. It actually came down to 10 agendas that the American people will face in the next 4 years. I was appalled. I was dumbfounded. I've never had anything happen quite this in-depth. In fact, to show you how in-depth the information was that they gave me. Now, keep in mind, these people are in their 70s and 80s. They have families. They have children that they've trained in the professional world. Some of the best in the way of doctors and lawyers, because they had the money to do it. They themselves even are very concerned about some of the things that are going on with the younger elite. And when I was able to put together these 10 agendas, I said, I've got to tell the American people. I can't keep this to myself. I think they probably gave it to me more as precautionary measures for my own family in light of what they know is going to happen. But I said, I must tell the world what I know. Well, I did. I went in studio, and it took me 3 hours and 29 minutes before the cameras just to explain the information that I've been given over these 10 agendas. So tonight, if you wish, I'll be glad to give you as many of these as I can, explain them briefly. And again, I would urge everyone out in Robert's listening audience tonight, please get pencil and paper. I'm giving you these for your help. I would like to, if at all possible, spare you as much heartache as I can. And so as a result, Robert, you just tell me where you'd like to go tonight.
Pastor, the floor is yours. Please do with it what you need. We'll be taking a break in approximately about 15 minutes, and then we can pick it up from there.
Well, since it is that you have a cold tonight and not feeling too well, I will gladly take advantage of your offer to help people know as much of this as I possibly can. Now, first of all, I'd like to say right up front some of this is not doom and gloom. I mean, surprisingly, some of these things are very much to your advantage. And that's the reason I feel so honored tonight to be on your show, Robert, because I can help people to know how to prepare for this. And if you will take precautions now, there are many things that are very much to your advantage. In fact, the very first agenda, the first item, is a blessing of blessings if you know how to accept it. So, here goes. With those pencils and paper in hand, I'm going to make a very drastic prediction. I'm going to stick my neck way out because as I've heard these things from them and then read between the lines with the conversations that I have with them from time to time when I need to ask a question, this first item will surprise you but yet be a great blessing to you. If the elite have their way, there will not be a financial collapse yet. Did you catch that? I know what the newsletters are saying. I have a lot of people in the newsletter business, financial newsletters. I talked to some of the financial top people. I was on the phone yesterday with a Wall Street insider, and we were comparing some notes. And I know what the newsletters are saying. We're going to have a financial collapse the next month. You know, this has been going on for about a year to a year and a half. That some of my good friends out there that write financial newsletters were saying, there's going to be a collapse in October. And then they'd come back and say, there's going to be a collapse about the time of the election. And then I heard, so many predictions. I heard, there's going to be a real financial problem at the time of the inauguration. And I'd go to my elite friends and I would say, is there going to be a financial collapse in the next 3 months? And he would just chuckle over the phone and say, no, Chaplain, we're not ready for a financial collapse yet. So, at this point, let me say, the elite, they think they're God. They really are. They're human beings just like you and me, except they have the financial world by the tail. And if they have their way, and they don't always get their way, they haven't had their way in Syria with Assad. In fact, he has set them back about 8 or 9 months in their plans to give the Middle East countries to the Muslim Brotherhood. So you see, they don't always get their way, but most of the time they do. And if the elite, the New World Order, call them the Federal Reserve, put any label on them you'd like, the people who control the world, if they have their way, there will not be a financial collapse. Now, I'm going to give you some time frames. I think that you're very safe for at least a 2-year period. Now, I did not set a date there. I just said if they have their way. There are many factors that could change and alter things one way or the other. But if they have their way, there will not be a financial collapse for 2 years, maybe 3 years. I wouldn't bet on 4 years under any stretch of the imagination. Now, that's to your advantage, because right now you have a glorious window of opportunity to go out there and do something about preparing your household for what is going to happen. Let me say emphatically, there positively is going to be a collapse of the American dollar. There's no way around it. Our national debt, the problems, Congress will not back off. The fiscal cliff, we almost got into it, but I knew that they weren't going to because I'd been told they wouldn't. You've got time right now. The American dollar is still fairly strong. It shouldn't be the way that it's being exited by everybody in the world. But right now, you've got about a 2-year, maybe 2.5-year period that you can take that dollar that's still fairly strong and do what you need to do with it. Now,
Pastor Williams, I'm sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for a second because I do remember you saying that in 2012 that one of your elitist friends said that the dollar would be dead. In my opinion, up till now, I think it is pretty much dead. I think we are just still using it here as a currency in the United States because China has backed off from the dollar, as well as Russia. They are no longer trading in dollar for oils, if I'm correct, and so bold to say.
Yes. In fact, the dollar is already dead. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, and let me prove it to you. You can go back and look this up for yourself. Let's take, for instance, what happened on April the 5th of 2012, which really began the end of the American dollar as such, as the reserve currency of the world. On April the 5th of 2012, there was a group called BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They had a meeting which included 43% of the world's population, 18% of the world's GDP, and 53% of the world's global financial capital. And they said at that meeting, we are not going to use the American dollar any longer for sale and trade amongst ourselves. Instead, we're going to use Chinese currency. And they set up their own banking system, and that is 43% of the world's population now not going to use the American dollar any longer. Then it happened. December the 1st of 2012, it took place in Phnom Penh. You heard about it before it happened. But after it took place, you didn't hear a peep on the national media. Now, you remember that our president, he was taking his whole entourage. They were going to have a marvelous time going to Asia, and he was just going to get all these American jobs. Oh, the media just built it up something great. And he did. He went there, the President of the United States of America, to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Now, what is that? It comprised 1/2 of the world's population. 15 Asian nations, which included China, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand. 3 billion Asians, their representatives met in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, and they said, well, when our president got there, he was gloriously embarrassed, first of all, let me say. In fact, they told him, they said, Mr. Obama, you just get right back on your 747, fly back home. We don't even want you. We're going to use Chinese currency. This 1/2 of the world's population at that meeting on December the 1st of 2012 said, we are going to trade amongst ourselves. We're not going to use the American dollar any longer as a reserve currency of the world. We're not going to use it as the petrodollar. Now, do you realize that between the BRICS group and the Phnom Penh group in Asia, that it comprised about 90% of the entire world's population that says we are going to phase out the dollar. We're not going to use it any longer. Robert, you're exactly right. For all practical purposes, the Americans are not awake to this yet, but for all practical purposes, the American dollar is unwanted, unused. It is no longer the reserve currency of the world, and when these trillions and trillions of American dollars return home 9 to 12 months from now, unwanted, unused, it is going to be a catastrophic event for the Federal Reserve and for the American dollar, Robert.
Well, those are extraordinary things you just said, Pastor Williams, and I've seen them all come to pass. I would say that your accuracy has been uncanny because you have been given this information by your elitist friends. I know it's kind of like a catch-22 for you, and it has to be a very difficult thing to deal with, but I remember you back in 2008, 2009 saying, oil is going to go to $50, and a lot of people just thought you were insane, and all of a sudden there it was, and all of a sudden everybody started to pay attention. Up to now, everything that you have said has been 100% accurate, and I just dread the fact of what is going to unfold next, because I know that you have mentioned that there is the old elite, which you have a kinship to a certain degree, but there's also the new elite, which basically are now at odds with each other, and they are battling each other, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Pastor, you said that they want this to occur very quickly, where the older elite do not want this to happen very quickly because they do not want a revolution in this country or any other. Yet we have seen many things transpire in the last 4 years, and it's actually quite frightening, especially for those Americans who have no clue what's going on. My heart goes out to them because they have no idea what they're going to have to face, unfortunately.
Well, I can take no credit for these statistics at all. I oftentimes try to tell people I don't get my information from tea leaves or fortune tellers or dreams or visions. I am not a prophet. It's just that by God's providence and grace, I was allowed to know some of these people, and they still keep in touch with me and give me these facts. And I try every way possible to help people. You can't be the pastor of a church for 12 years and a missionary for many years without having a heart for people. And I beg of you to know why the elite do not want a collapse yet. Please put this next agenda down. They have an agenda for forced debt creation. I hope you caught that first word. Forced debt creation. The elite want to create such massive debt as fast as they possibly can, in every way they humanly possibly can. They are going to create debt in the Euro and the European Union, in America, in every state, in every city, in every county, in every home. Oh, people, please, I beg of you to guard against debt. Don't fall into the trap that the elite have set, whereby they will put you into such debt that you will fall into their hands to the point that you will someday be begging for a new currency, begging for a new constitution and form of government. The New World Order wants to get you to the place that you will actually ask them for what they want to give you because you will be in such a horrible condition. And they're using forced debt creation in order to do it. You remember, you've just gone through the fiscal cliff. Oh, did they build it up? I knew it was nothing but a smoke screen. It was for the purpose of making you think something, and it wasn't for the purpose of taxing the rich, the furthest thing in the world from the truth. The physical cliff and all of the fiasco involved with it was for the purpose of taxing the middle class American literally into oblivion, and taxing you so heavily that you will be forced into such debt that someday the New World Order can step in and give you exactly what they want you to have. You have never seen such taxes as are going to be put on the middle class. In fact, immediately after the fiscal cliff, the very next week, you were hit with a 2% tax on what you made that week. And then come around April the 15th, oh my goodness, you probably haven't been to your tax, the people that fill out your tax returns yet. Ask them about an alternative minimum tax. Nearly every household in America will be paying $2,000 and $3,000 that you did not even expect to have to pay in an alternative minimum tax. There may even be a modular minimum tax. They may even resort to a national sales tax. Then you've got Obamacare tax coming up.
But Pastor, that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. Pastor, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off because we are coming up on that break right now, but you're absolutely right, and that's what I wanted to ask you next, is the Obamacare bill, because there's so much in that bill that the American public does not know. There's extraordinary measures in there, and taxation, I understand, is one of them to, of course, finish off the United States of America as we know it, and to bring in their New World Order. Now, if you're just joining us right now at the bottom of the hour, I have my very special guest, an extraordinary man who had the privilege of spending quite a few years with the elite of the world, who are basically in control of the monetary system and our government in order to implement their New World Order. Now, Pastor Williams has just created a brand new DVD called The Next 4 Years. And Pastor Williams, I'm sorry we got cut off by the break, but I know you were just getting into the taxation and Obamacare, so let's please continue on from there.
Robert, I want to thank you so very much for bringing up the subject of Obamacare. And if I may divert my thoughts for just a moment from the 10 agendas that I was in the process of giving, then I'll get back to them. I'd like to help you understand what's happening with the medical system of America. It is so heartbreaking and so disturbing to me, I don't even know how to explain it. Let me tell you something that's happened to me within the past 2 weeks that I think you will find just as startling as I have. About 2 weeks ago, I had a contact from, I'm going to give you names and dates. I'm going to give you names and places. You can prove this for yourself. I know this is so unusual that I'm going to try my best to help you know exactly how to go to find it out. I had a contact from Dr. Holman. He's a medical doctor for approximately 20 years in Lisle, Washington State. And Dr. Holman, along with all the other doctors in America, by the way, received that first packet of material from the federal government in relation to Obamacare, which will have its inception as of January the 1st of 2014. Something happened drastic. Dr. Holman's office received the paperwork. Dr. Holman has a secretary and receptionist who has been with him approximately 15 years. Both of them very devout Christians, people who believe the Bible and follow it in their business practices. And his secretary looked over the paperwork, as she always does, everything that comes to the office. And she came to Dr. Holman and she said, Doctor, I'm going to have to resign. Now, 15 years. And Dr. Holman, a practicing physician for approximately 20 years, and she said, I can't do this. She said, morally, this won't allow me to take part in it anymore. She said, when Obamacare comes in, and I guess she handed Dr. Holman the paperwork. Now, every doctor in America, so I understand, has just gotten this. That first packet of rules and regulations, and this is the way you have to do it. And she said, Doctor, I'm sorry, I won't be able to do this. So Dr. Holman took the material home, looked it over, and now that was approximately 2 weeks ago. If you go tonight to Lisle, Washington, downtown, where Dr. Holman's office was, you will find a closed sign on the door. He has already shut down his practice, closed his business as a doctor, and will no longer be there. Now, I was so dumbfounded when I heard this. I contacted another gentleman that I want you to go on YouTube and watch him. Now, you'll find this for your own viewing. I want you to go on YouTube and look up Dr. David Janda, Janda. Very, very prominent physician of the Middle West. Dr. Janda is such a surgeon. He has been in the medical profession for over 20 years. He is so renowned until Congress actually asked him to come and speak before Congress as to his opinion of the healthcare system before it was presented to Congress, and he did. That's how well known this man is. And I've been on his radio show a number of times. He has a radio show. In fact, I'm going to be on with him again this coming Sunday. And Dr. Janda, I said, I've got to contact him. I did. And here's what I found out. Now, keep in mind, this man over 20 years, this prominent a doctor, he has already sold his office building. He has already given a date for the ceasing of his medical practice. He has already notified the local hospital as to the date that he will hand all of his patients over to them to give to somebody else if they wish, and he will no longer be a medical doctor. Now, all of this hit me at one time because these doctors are getting this first information on Obamacare. At the same week, if I remember correctly, Anita gave me a call. Now, that name won't register with you, but a very close friend of ours. We've been in their home. We know them for numbers of years. Anita had just been on the phone with a very prominent brain surgeon in the Northwest, Washington, Oregon area. And this brain surgeon, likewise, I presume, had just learned about Obamacare rules and regulations. And he said to Anita, Anita, if I am required to follow the guidelines of Obamacare. He said 50% of my patients will die on the operating table. He said, I must make instantaneous decisions. He said, I don't have time to ask anybody's opinion. And he said, if I have to follow these guidelines, he said 50% of my patients will die on the operating table. He said brain surgery is extremely meticulous. And he said things, oftentimes I don't even have time to think before I make a decision. Now, I need to tell you what Dr. Jandis said to me. He has made a survey of the medical profession. And Dr. Jandis said to me, he said, Chaplain, 40% of the people that are in the medical profession right now will be leaving by January the 1st of next year. Did you catch that? 40%. 40% of the doctors, 40% of the nurses, 40% of the people in the medical system, medical professionals, will be leaving. I said, Doctor, what do you mean? He said, the old ones are resigning. He said, they can't take it. He said, the young ones realize they can't make a living because Obamacare is going to dictate to them everything that they do and how much they give them for every patient. They realize they can't make it. He said, all of those who can get out are getting out. Now, Dr. Holman's not ready to retire. He's middle-aged. Dr. Janda is not ready to retire by any stretch of the imagination. But they're leaving. Why? They can't do it. They can't do it for the same reason the Hobby Lobby couldn't. You remember it? The largest hobby store in America, 525 stores all across this land. And they were founded by a family. And they're very devout Christians, believers in the Bible. And they said, we cannot pay the Obamacare tax for every employee that we have in our stores because they said in paying that Obamacare tax, we're paying for abortion, we're paying for contraceptives, we're paying for birth control. He said we're paying for the day after pill, and they said we cannot do it. They subpoenaed the state court, and they turned them down flat. They have now taken it to the Supreme Court, and they've already been told that as of January the 1st of next year, if they do not abide by the Obamacare rules, that Hobby Lobby could be fined $1.3 million a day beginning January the 1st of this next year for not being willing to pay for those things that they do not believe as Christians, and they may even have to close down the stores. Thousands of people will lose their jobs. Can you imagine who's going to be left in the medical profession as of January the 1st of next year when the brains and the old-timers are gone? Yes. And the only people going to have left out there are the has-beens and the couldn't make it, and the others that couldn't find some way out. I cannot imagine what's going to happen to the medical system of the United States of America. But you know, this goes back to something. And Robert, you probably heard me say this on other radio shows across this nation. It was about 3.5, maybe 4 years ago. Mr. Fromm was still alive. And I was on the phone chatting with him one day, and he said to me, somehow the subject of a healthcare system came up. That's before it really was even in the works yet, before it was a big item. And a long time before it was presented to Congress. And somehow in our conversation, the subject came up with healthcare, and he said, Chaplain, this is not a healthcare system. I said, what do you mean, Ken? He said, what's going to be presented before Congress is not a health care bill. And I said, Ken, what are you talking about? He knew it. He already knew everything that was in it. Folks, now please catch this. This was before it had ever been read by, presented before Congress. One of them knew exactly everything that was in the bill, and he proceeded to tell me what it was, and finally said to me, Chaplain, he said, this is the final and the ultimate control factor of the American public. He said, this is the last straw. And it was presented before Congress, barely pushed through. You're going to begin facing it. You must learn to be your own family doctor. And you must learn how to do it yourself. The medical profession is not going to be out there for you. Can you imagine with 40% of the medical professionals in America leaving the profession by January the 1st of next year? Can you imagine how long you would wait in the emergency room? if you there.
Pastor, I can mirror what you're saying because a very close friend of my family who has been a friend and a family doctor for a very long time sold his practice prior to the Obamacare because he knew what was going to take place, and he says, I cannot participate in this because it'll be the ruin of me and my business, and I will not be able to give the proper care to my patients. So I completely understand what you're saying. What they have done is nothing short of, I guess, a fascist socialist structure that they're trying to put in place.
It's euthanasia.
Yes.
It's going to be the death of our medical care system. And you must begin learning right now. We have an entire section in my new DVD series, and Robert mentioned it a moment ago. It's entitled The Next 4 Years. We have an entire section in it explaining Obamacare, what you're going to face. What your doctor is going to face is appalling. And the whole section, they're explaining it and begging you to learn how to be your own doctor. You know, is quite interesting. After I heard what I heard from my elite friend, and as I mentioned earlier, I went in studio, and it took me 3 hours and 29 minutes before the cameras just to explain the information that I've been given about these 10 agendas. And after the DVD was completed, and I was about ready to release it, and I looked at it, and I said, I can't do this. I cannot give this to the American people like this. There was so much in-depth involvement in this. And I said, I can't. My heart won't let me. And I contacted two of the most prominent people that I know in America today in the financial world. One of them is a former Wall Street insider who knows everything still that's going on up there on Wall Street. And I said, gentlemen, you are the most unusual, most knowledgeable financial professionals I know in the country. I said, would you go in studio with me and let's produce a DVD series entitled How to Survive the Next 4 Years. I could not release the first DVD series, 3 hours and 29 minutes long. I couldn't do it because it left you hanging too much. You know the issues, but you don't know what to do about it. And so we did. They agreed. And we went in studio and produced a 2 hour and 50-minute documentary. And I said, I don't want any doom and gloom. I said, I don't want any of the things. I've already told them what's going to happen and what they'll face for 4 years. I said, the only thing I want on this DVD series is solutions. Nothing but solutions. I said, I want a solution for the millionaire. I want a solution for the middle class. I want a solution for the street man or lady, whoever they may be. And in 2 hours and 50 minutes, we give nothing but solution that will help you to spare your dinner table, know how to survive through what the elite have planned for you. And we put these two series together. The first one is entitled The Next 4 Years. The second one is entitled How to Survive the Next 4 Years. You get both of them, 6 hours and approximately 30 minutes, all in one series of DVDs to try to help you know what to do in light of what you're going to face over the next 4 years' time. So let's go back and I'll cover just a few more of these agendas. Just before we do, though, please, would you jot down our toll-free number just in case you'd like to spare your dinner table? Our toll-free number for the next 4 years and how to survive the next 4 years is 888-799-6111, toll-free. Or you can go on the web, if you wish, to prophecyclub.com. That's prophecyclub.com, or toll-free 24 hours a day, 888-799-6111. And I hope that you will help me get this information out. Keep in mind that my DVDs are not copywritten. I've been original and copy them and give them to everybody you can, especially your pastor. The pastor of the church, if you attend a church, and I hope you do, the pastor of your church has got to see this. there is one of the agendas of the elite entitled Devil's Messiah. And they have accelerated it for the next 4 years. Now keep in mind, these things that you are going to see in the next 4 years are things that will take place periodically over the 4-year period. Not all of this is going to happen tomorrow morning. And if you know in advance what's going to happen, you will have time to do something about it, just like the forced debt creation. So at this point, I would like to give you what is called a devaluation formula. Now, please, jot this down, and with your calculator right there in your house, you can figure this for yourself. And what I'm going to do is give you what percentage your currency is devaluing every month. Yes, that's correct, every month. And I want you to figure, in light of this, how long your household can survive without some very drastic measures and precautions that you'll have to take. So put down some percentages. First of all, put down 3%. As of September the 13th of 2012, when Mr. Bernanke of the Federal Reserve announced that he was going to buy $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities every month, indefinitely, every month, your currency is devaluing in purchasing power 3% as a result of what the Federal Reserve did there that day. Secondly, put down 2%, which was the result of the fiscal cliff, and 2% additional was taken out of your paycheck beginning that very next week. Then put down Obamacare. You're going to pay somewhere between 3 and 4%. You're going to pay between $30 and $60, depending on your family, in Obamacare beginning the first day of next year. Now, you figure approximately what percentage that this is going to diminish the money that you have out of your paycheck every month or every week. Now, food prices. You've been to the grocery store recently. You know what percentage food prices are going up. Put that percentage down. Then put down inflation. That's right. Inflation, the government admits to it, is between 7 and 9% per year. That means you'll need to put down 0.5 to 0.75% for inflation. Now, add all of those up, and that's how much purchasing power your Federal Reserve note, your paper currency, is losing per month. Now, you tell me how long it will be that you can continue to live the lifestyle you live, whereby you put food on the table, clothes on the back of the family, gasoline in the gas tank in order to get you back and forth to work, and still pay the house mortgage at the same time. At some point, you'll get to the place you'll say, I don't have enough to go around. And when you do, you will probably do what most everybody else is doing. You'll just not make that house mortgage payment. And that's exactly what the elite wants you to do. Folks, please try to understand the mindset of these people. They want to diminish your currency to the point that you can't make that house payment. And when you can't, they're going to step in and say, oh, you haven't made your payment for so many months. We'll have to repossess. They don't give you one thing back for all the years that you paid into it. And they'll say, oh, well, no problem. You can stay in the house. We'll just rent it back to you and your children for the rest of your life. You know, people so often say to me, they say, Chaplain, why would the New World Order, the elite, destroy America? And I come back and say, folks, you don't understand. They are not destroying America. They live here. They're free enterprise capitalists. They've made their money off of capitalism. They're not destroying America. They are taking over America. Don't you realize that the Federal Reserve has bought $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities, which includes your house mortgage, the mortgage on the shopping center down the street, the mortgage on your church? The Federal Reserve now owns it. They pulled $40 billion out of thin air and bought it. And whenever you can't make that payment, they'll come and repossess it. And who is the Federal Reserve? It's nothing but the elite. They are not destroying America. They are taking over America their way in order to bring you into the New World Order. And it is part of a plan that is so it is so devastating to the American people. We can't let it happen. You must know the 10 agendas of the elite over the next 4 years. Now, there's some things happening out there right now. The American people are waking up. Robert, I am so glad that this gun control issue has come into being, even though it has been devastating. So many decisions have had to be made on the parts of sheriffs and law enforcement and people across America. But you know, it has awakened millions to the fact that we've got to keep that Constitution. We can't let it die. And we have some major issues out there right now that are waking up millions and millions of Americans. And if they'll wake up in time, we can defeat the workings of the New World Order. Rob, I know we're just about out of time here. I've only covered a few of these. It took 6.5 hours to cover that plus solutions, but we'll see how much time we have, and then we'll go from there.
Pastor Williams, we're almost out of time. We have about a minute left, and there's so many questions I want to ask you in regards to gold and silver, because you've talked about that in the past, and eventually it's going to really break the mark of where it's sitting now, and that is one of the things that can definitely save people at the dinner table, as you have spoken about before. I know we hardly got to touch on the 10 bullet point agendas that you wanted to talk about, but please, before the show ends, I would like for you to put out your website, and again, where they can purchase your newest DVD, and then I would be honored for you to come back on this show so we can talk about the bullet points.
Please go to my personal website. It's really not mine. A man in Great Britain just set it up in my name. Go to lindseywilliams.net. You'll find every radio show I'm on. In fact, Robert, your show is up there tonight, and many extra hundreds of people will be listening just because they know where to find it. lindseywilliams.net, and I post bulletins daily and weekly so you'll know the very latest. Please get our new DVD series, The Next 4 Years, and How to Survive the Next 4 Years. Our toll-free number is 888-799-6111, or you can go on the web to prophecyclub.com, prophecyclub.com. Folks, set that spiritual house in order. Be sure that you know Jesus Christ is your Savior. Know that your household is on the solid rock and that the Word of God is your guide. And when that's the case, you can survive what is about to take place. You can take precautions right now. And Robert, it has been such a privilege to be on your show tonight. I'd welcome the opportunity to be back again sometime.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. It's been an absolute pleasure. And everybody, this has been the broadcast for this evening. So please go to his website, www.lindseywilliams.net. Check out his newest DVD, and he will be back on this broadcast with his updates, and we will touch on the bullet points. Everybody have a great, wonderful evening. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.